Hi friends, I'm Olga Koelsch and welcome back to my studio. I get such a positive feedback on my drawing and watercolor lessons. So for today's lesson, I'm focused only on drawing and we will be exploring drawing flowers when we look at them from the top. And there are different approaches and some nuances to each and every flower, but I will break it through into simple shapes, into simple stages, and I hope it will help you to understand the flower structure and feel more confident with painting that. Now let's start. Let's start with the simple flowers. I will call them counted petals, counted flowers. I mean, if you try hard, you could count each and every petal on each and every flower. But what I mean, you could easily say if it is 5 petals or 4 petals or maybe 6, like for anemones, for example. And we put them in a circle. Usually these types of flowers, they have very certain middle part, and then you paint inside another 5 circles. And remember, we are not at geometry lesson. Of course, you could use special tools to make perfect circles, but I like when students are practicing their handwriting, hand painting, and create very different lines. And this looks very authentic. Everyone have our unique style of drawing, of painting, or holding the brush. So don't substitute all your lines with something geometrical. Let's set up middle. Usually in the middle, most of these flowers, they have pollen area. So that border will help you to arrange stamens. Right now I'm drawing very thick lines. When you draw, it's actually on a paper. Of course, you could remove all the lines or paint them much lighter. Another thing you have to check if the petals have some veins, some very certain veins. Usually they have at least very visible middle vein. So you could map it out. Also, at this point, you could add some small, tiny details like bent areas, for example, and keep explore. Some petals, they might have like the V-shaped edges. Some petals could have a little bit sharper edges. So at this point, you add details into your basic elements. Next type of flowers, it could be sunflowers, it could be daisies. I would say flowers with multi-petal structure. They still could be counted, but we see that pretty a lot. And what do we do? We paint a circle. Yes, again, we find a middle. Usually these type of flowers, they have some seeds area, which is pretty evident, pretty big. So we draw another circle. And maybe to help you a little bit to get some skeleton, some structure, you could set up few anchor lines and arrange petals
accordingly. Usually these type of flowers, they have not rounded petals like in the first one, but more oval-shaped petals. So now we have to arrange all these ovals around. Again, at this stage, no need to go into details. You just bring ovals around, and depending on which flower you are drawing, you could stop either here, and that could be a nice daisy already, or you could add the second layer of these elements, of these petals, to make it more volume, to add some volume, to add more petals. And that could be these garden daisies. I forgot the name, but you could correct me in comments. And if you add some sharpness to the petals, that will be a basement for a sunflower. So what you have to do when you start to draw, first you have to find the basic shape, then you break into smaller shapes like middle, have a look at petals, find out what type of petals and what's the feature of the petal. Is it either sharp or round? And depending on that, you could draw a lot of different flowers, but with just with the same principle. So let's add a little bit more of details into the seeds area. You could do it in different ways. Sometimes just very closed, organized, small circle shapes is quite enough to bring the idea. Or as another way, you could just strike it through, just like this. And if you add the second layer, we will get this cross hatch, also quite reminiscent of sunflower. With sunflowers and daisies, we also could see the middle vein in the petals. No need to draw it for each and every petal, but if you here and there add few details, for us, for a viewer, it will be enough to get the idea of a flower. Next type of flowers, they have also counted amount of petals, but they have very edged petals. I will call them star-shaped flowers. That could be poinsettias, the best and perfect example. That could be amaryllises, lilies, all these type of flowers. They have very specific petals, but again, we start with a circle and with the middle, And depending on a flower, let's take poinsettia as example. It's quite complex but fun. We have a look on the petals. Petals, they have very certain sharp point and relatively oval body. Not long body as for these types of flowers, but very sharp edge and oval body. And let's arrange them. To make it easier, we firstly think in simple shapes like ovals. So we find a place for our future petals just with ovals. So in principle, you could start in the same point as we did here, but keep in mind that these types of flowers, especially amaryllis, lilies, they have even amount of petals, 6 usually. So 6 ovals. Now we make sharp edges. So we have our ovals and we now add this sharpness. And you see immediately it's very different. It absolutely different mood, and that's absolutely recognizable flower. You have to watch what's overlapping with what. For poinsettia, it's a multi-layered flower. Usually it has another circle in the middle, again with very sharp petals on it. Remove all unnecessary details at this point. Organize new ovals. It's all about simple structure, all about simple shapes. And then you turn these ovals into a little bit sharp petals. I do not go inside now because I firstly want to set the structure, and then I will create overlapping depending on how it will better look. For example, this petal will go on top, this petal will go on bottom. You shouldn't leave some weird questionable petals because they either on the top or on the bottom. So better if you bring understanding to that. Same with these petals. And I know that at some point these extra lines, they are disturbing. Just remove them. And you could add another layer of these petals. Same principle. And right here you could just go with triangles. But remember that flowers, they're very soft and gentle. They very rare have that type of edges. It's always about some soft line. Even if we start with pure geometry here, lines are soft, and give your hand some nice wave. And honestly, the more curvy, the more even weird your line is, the more life your line has, the better will be the result. At this point you could add some details, middle veins, and pollen area, which is for poinsettia, it's cluster of stamens looking like this. And let's move to the next one. So my battery is died in the middle, so that will be a little bit of cheating. Next are flowers, are fluffy flowers. It could be roses, it could be peonies. And the main difference between the previous ones, that we do not see the petal, the open petal side. We see just the edge of petals. Sometimes we could see a little bit of tilted area or some bent area of petals. That's the main difference. But anyway, we start with a circle We find a middle and we start to arrange these edges from middle to the sides, and usually edges on the flowers, they are not like this. They have their curves, so C strokes. And do not arrange them too schematically. They should be nicely overlapping, and it is more dense in the middle, and they have more and more room once you go to the edges. To make it easier, firstly you just set up these edges. Try to add some overlapping. Have a look, explore your flower, because sometimes petals could tend to the middle like this, or they could be more in parallel with our not really circle. So right now it's starting to look like a rose, or more ranunculus. I think ranunculus, they have the most dense, evident structure of petals like this. But let's think about roses. In most roses, we could see this nice bent area. And now you just add this beautiful wavy part to each and every stroke, and there is a great room for your imagination. And sometimes it could be really, really wavy. Sometimes it could be relatively smooth. Right now it's an experimental example of a flower, so I allow myself to do what I want and show you different ways. But once you have your reference in front of you, it could be either picture or real flower, you will notice all these details. So we have now all these nice bent petals. It already looks like a lovely rose, but of course it's not nice once flower is it does not have any borders now, so we can't see where all the petal comes, so we have to enlarge a little bit all these lines. So all the petal, I will show you on example on one. So all the petal in principle has to grow from somewhere, from the middle of the flower, but we can't see all this part. We could see only some small little part. That's why we try to bring our petals into some logical point. And at this stage you might like to add some more details, and this is absolutely great. So now you see, once we started to close our petals, to close the shape, it gets more and more and more real. The more we are in the middle, the fewer details we could see, and it is more and more dense. So don't hesitate, add more and more strokes. The middle should be very, very evident. Now let's remove a little bit this outline so you could see better. Check out if all the petals came to some logical connection, to some point. And now we got a rose. That was not too complicated, right? Now we have 4 different types of flowers which we look from the top, and you could practice a lot. You could basically take any flower, and depending on the type of the flower, you could break it into simple shapes, add details, add veins, add special edges, add pollen areas, and get any flower. Good luck!
Thank you so much for watching this lesson, for drawing with me. I'm very curious to hear your feedback. I read each and every your comment. I'm looking forward to see you next time, and I invite you to join my membership. I'm very proud of what I'm into. I hope it will help to boost your creativity, to boost your painting skills, and it covers a lot of topics in it. See you next time. Bye bye.